Hi, you've reached Why We Are Christians. This is the second half of our interview with Mary Kay Mancebo, and we have just left on a cliffhanger. Welcome back, Mary Kay. So glad that you're here with us.
Thank you.
I wanted to just recap a little bit of where we left off. So Mary Kay had been sent to jail because of drugs. She was arrested with heroin in her car and 3 minors. And you've been in jail. You had a 6-year minimum, pretty much, sentence. You've been in jail for 3 months. You got a call from your attorney saying that you were going to get out of jail. He had taken your case back. So pick it up from there and let's quickly move through how you got out.
Okay. So I will say I was in the warden's office. She said it'd be a week to 10 days before my paperwork came. So to go back and just wait the week to 10 days. The next day, I got another call to go to the warden's office, and she says to me, I don't know what kind of connections you have, but your papers came today, the very next day.
Wow.
Well, when I look back, I know what it was. You know, I know the connection. It was, you know, the Lord. But at that time, I wasn't thinking about it. But so I get out of jail, and I think, oh, I can do this on my own. I'm a Christian. I've accepted Jesus. I'll be able to do this on my own. But I didn't know any Christians. And they didn't encourage me to get into a church or anything like that. So my only friends were drug addicts. So I went back to my friends, and I started using again after about 2 weeks. And I was using daily and just doing things like that. And so one day my brother told me to come to this Bible study. So I went to the Bible study. I liked it. The next day they were going to meet at a church. And so I asked my mom to borrow the car. I was going to go to church, but I really wasn't. I had dope in my purse, and I was going to go over to a friend's house and shoot up. But I don't know what happened, but my car turned and went to a friend's house, and I asked that friend if she would go to church with me, and she did. And that's where I heard about the ministry in San Rafael of the Christian homes, of the Zion's Inn, and then which was girls, and then there was a guy's house in San Anselmo. And he said to me, why don't you come and stay with us up there? And
wow. So this was in Southern California still?
Right.
So
he was preaching in a church down there.
Was that Kent Philpott?
No, that was Paul Bryant.
Okay, so Paul Bryant was from Northern California, but he was preaching in Southern California.
Right. He ran the boys' house.
Okay,
Kent
so he asked you to come up to be in the girls' house in Northern California.
Right.
Wow. And you said yes?
I did.
Wow. So you just got up and said, I'm out of here. I'm going to make this move.
He came to follow me to my house. I packed a bag, packed an overnight bag, packed a suitcase, whatever I could get in it. Told my mother I'm leaving and I don't know where I'm going and I don't really care, so bye. And I walked out of the house and I went to Zion's Inn. He took me to Zion's Inn and I moved in there.
Did you feel the need, I understand that you probably felt, without maybe knowing it, the calling of the Lord to do this, the Lord's direction to do this, but were you also feeling the need to get away from the drug culture? That
I knew by listening to the sermon that I needed to get away from there because I did not have the strength on my own.
Right.
And so I knew that this was something that I had to do for me.
Okay, so you go up to San Rafael. And
I do.
You start living in a place called the Zion's Inn. Tell us a little bit about that. And then that was sort of during the Jesus People movement, correct?
It was right in the middle of it, about in the middle of it. And so there was a singing group called Joyful Noise. Of course, I got involved in anything that I could because I was that type of person. So Kent had a group and it was Joyful Noise, and we went all over everywhere. We went to high schools and PTAs and spoke there and told our testimonies and told kids how they could get off of drugs, and that's how we got into the high schools. Otherwise you couldn't have got into the high school because they don't let you talk about the Lord, but we talked about drugs and gave our testimony. And then we did a lot of things like going to different groups. I would go to juvenile hall on weekends and talk there to the girls there. And then one time, I didn't get to do this. I was very disappointed. They went to San Quentin, and I really wanted to go there, but I was not allowed to go because I was on federal parole, and so they would not allow me to go in. So I was really disappointed on that. But otherwise, we went around and did a lot of stuff like that. And
That's great. What was your part in the group? What did you do?
oh, I think I played the maracas and sang.
Oh, okay, great.
So-
Great. Did you find that any of the kids that you were witnessing to came to the Lord?
You know, I think they did. I vaguely remember that some did, but that's one thing that I'm really waiting for is when I get to heaven to see how many of those people, you know, listen to what we said in the group. And if my testimony had anything to do, I can tell you the woman, her name was Connie when I was in prison, her testimony meant a lot to me.
Changed your life.
It
So
did.
you, like Connie, you were sowing seeds.
Yes.
And you'll see which one of those reap. Now, let me just backtrack a tad. So when you went to Zion's Inn, you had been using drugs up until that very point. And once you got up to San Rafael, did you feel withdrawals, or what happened? How did you get clean?
Okay. Well, the first night we stayed at Paul's parents' house in San Diego. His parents lived in San Diego. So instead of driving up that night, we stayed in San Diego. And I told them, I had gone into the bathroom and flushed all my drugs. And I told them, I said, you know, I'm going to be pretty sick tonight. And so you have to understand that, you know, I'll be going through withdrawals. And they prayed for me and laid hands on me. And I had no withdrawals.
Wow.
I
That's
woke up in
amazing.
the morning like it had never been.
And didn't ever feel any effects?
no.
Wow, that's fabulous.
And I know what it's like because the first time I went,
You've done it.
It's horrible.
I bet.
Horrible.
I bet. So you then got clean, you're at Zion's Inn, and you are going around testifying to the schools. That's really great. And then where did it go from there?
Well, I still had this boyfriend.
Oh, right, the boyfriend. You still have the boyfriend.
Still had the boyfriend.
Okay.
And I went to visit him one time in jail, and he asked me to marry him.
Where was he in jail?
He was in
Southern Cal?
Redwood City.
Oh, so he was up in Northern California in jail.
Right.
Okay.
So I
all right.
went
Well,
over
that was
there.
Convenient.
He asked me to marry him. So I came home and I said, Kent, will you marry us? And he said, no.
Now, just to backtrack for the audience, Kent Philpott
Yes.
ran the Zion's Inn
Yes.
up in San Rafael. Kent is now the minister, and has been for quite a while, of Miller Avenue Church here in
Correct.
Mill Valley, which is in Northern California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. So, okay, so you visited your delinquent boyfriend.
Yes.
You went and told Kent. I'm sure Kent was really thrilled to hear that news. And he said, no way, I'm not going to marry you.
No. He said, you're too young, you're too smart, you're too pretty, which I didn't really, but he gave me all these reasons that he would not do that. So I went over to the pastor of the boys' house, Paul, and I asked him.
Playing them against each other.
He said the same thing, no.
Oh,
So then, all the older people, the stronger Christians and Kent's other people that he worked with, they got together and started praying for somebody to come into my life that was a Christian, And people came into my life. They were short, they were younger, they wanted to do the right thing, but it wasn't the right thing for me. And I was the greeter. So when new people came to the Bible studies, I was the greeter. And this man walked in. I got chills. And that's the last thing I remember. I just kind of knew he was going to be the one for me.
wow.
And we were together in groups. And I prayed because I didn't want to have the same thing happen. So I prayed to the Lord to give me a sign so that I would know that this was the man for me. And he did. And so then I prayed again. I said, I really need to know, is this the man for me? And he said, yes, it was. So I started planning my wedding, got my dress pattern, talked about it.
Had you spent any time
Oh,
with
no.
this guy?
We would sit next to each other at Bible studies and chit-chat, and we would he'd come by the house with his car, and he'd pick up all of us girls and take us to Christian rock concerts. And
But it was a group thing.
it was always a group. Okay. So one day, he took us all to the Petaluma house, bunch of us, and I got everybody else a different ride home. so that when we were coming home, I would be the only one in the car. And so on the way home, since I talk a lot, the Holy Spirit said, "Shut up."
And you listened.
I listened, and the first words out of his mouth was, "Would you marry me?"
Are you? Wow.
And I said yes.
Wow, what a story.
And then we had a date. We had one real date. And then we got married.
And how many years ago was that?
46 years ago next month.
Oh, wow. I guess that really was love at first sight. Huh?
It was. It was. And I just thank the Lord for him all the time. He was much stronger than me. He was a stronger Christian than me. And I will have to say that our first year was not all that great because we didn't know each other.
Right.
And we had to get to know each other. But you know, with the Lord made it so that we would be here today.
That was kind of like a Holy Spirit arranged wedding. That's really neat. Okay, so tell us, bring us up to date now. So you and your husband have been married 46 years.
Next month.
Do you have kids? Did you have kids?
Yes, I was told when I was by several doctors that I'd never have any children because of things that happened during my drug years. And I believe my verse is 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. Behold, all things pass away. Everything becomes new. And I know that when I became a Christian, that God healed me. And so right away, Chuck and I talked about it, you know, and we just said, we'll just go with what the Lord has. You know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, we'll adopt. 1 year and 1 month after we were married, we had our first child,
Wow.
a boy. And then I did lose 2 children between there. About halfway through the pregnancy, I lost 2. And then I got pregnant again, and we had our daughter.
So Mary Kay, let me just do a really quick recap. You've been saved by drug addiction. You've been rescued from a man who was not good for you. You found a fabulous, wonderful man, Christian man. You were told you could not have kids, yet you have 2. And you have some grandkids as well.
I do.
So you, I think, are what qualifies to be a very blessed woman.
Blessed woman. And my husband, during his time in the service, he had a child, and we looked for that child for all of our married life until our daughter had our first grandchild. He was 3, and Chuck did a lot of missionary trips overseas, and he went and looked for him, and we did several things, and unbeknownst to us, during that time, she was looking for him. And somehow we, through a friend of a soldier, got a hold of Chuck, and we got together with her 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And met her, and she is just a daughter to me also. And so now,
So you have
between
3 kids.
3 kids, and we have 8 grandchildren.
Oh my gosh. One thing, I know this is very important in a Christian life. Were you baptized?
Yes, I was. I know I was baptized as a child because my mom told me I was baptized as a child. But when I went to Zion's Inn, these people were, you know, they got saved, and I'd go to baptisms, and, you know, I knew that I wanted to be baptized. And so we had these picnics, and we'd go down to Paradise Cove. I couldn't tell you where it is now, but that's the name of it. And have a picnic, and then Kent, you know, would baptize everybody who wanted to be baptized, and then we'd have some fellowship and play games. But that was a really meaningful thing in my life, you know, was to be baptized and know why I was being baptized.
Right. To be, you made your choice.
This was my choice.
Right. That's fabulous. So, and Paradise Cove is part of the San Francisco Bay. So you were baptized in the Bay.
I was. Yay.
That's great.
In the first few years of our life, I was a stay-at-home mom. I loved it. I stayed home with my children. And then we wanted our kids to go to Christian school, so I took on a little part-time daycare in my home, and they went to Christian school. And so then we decided, you know, we'd put them in the younger ones, and then, you know, they'd go to public high school. Come to find out that my son really wanted to he graduated from Christian school. Our daughter, when we moved, when our son was a senior and our daughter was a freshman to Atwater, and they had a lot of Christian teachers at the high school and a good program there. So we had her go to public school, and she was in FCA, and so we you know, would go to church with them, take them to church. If they wanted to go to a different church, we went to that church, because if that's where they wanted to go and they wanted to get the word, fine. We would follow them to the church of their choice until they left, and now we go to the church of our choice.
Right.
But
your goal was to raise your kids up in the way of Jesus.
And I have to say this one little thing. In high school, when our daughter was a senior in high school, FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, asked me to speak in one of their things. And Atwater High School had the biggest FCA around. And so I said, yes, I would. And my daughter wasn't going to go, but she finally decided and then brought a friend. And I gave my testimony to all of her friends.
Wow, that's brave.
Yeah.
And also for her, that must have been amazing.
Yeah. Got a lot of calls from parents later, but it was okay. They were amazed because they couldn't believe it. You know, I tell people what my life was like before, and they go, "No way." You know, I go, "Yeah, no way, you're lying to us," because I could tell some stories, fun stories that weren't true, because I did that, and so they thought it was one of my stories, but it really is my life. So.
Wow.
You know.
So are you continuing to give your testimony these days?
Yes, I am. Mostly one-on-one. I am in a Bible study, and last year they asked of 200 women, and they asked me to give my testimony there. Wow. So that was good, and I kind of slowed down, you know, as the kids did, but one thing that we picked up is we started doing, mostly my husband, but I've done a few too, is going on short-term missions. And he has gone all over to everywhere. And what the main thing that he does was communications. People in the jungle that can't communicate, he gave them communications through ham radio, amateur radio, and a computer and a thing. So we've continued to work with that until the last couple of years, and it just blessed our hearts. Last year, my granddaughter, she was 14, but she turned 15 shortly after, wanted to go to a medical mission trip to Africa. So her and our daughter went to this medical mission to Africa, and it just changed her life, and it blessed us that they wanted to continue, that they wanted to do something like that, and they're going back again at the end of this year.
Oh, that's so fabulous.
So that is good that way. And
that is such a blessing to see the faith replicate through the generations of your family.
Right, and Kent wrote a book, Jesus Freaks. He asked me to write my bio and send it into that, so you know people can get it from that book. And he's told a little bit about it of his story through the book, but I have a little bit of that in there too.
Okay, good. So that book is called Jesus Freaks by Kent Philpott.
Kent Philpott.
Okay, good. Well, you have a phenomenal testimony, and I'm sure that it has blessed the listeners' ears today. Can you tell us about some of the difficult times that you've gone through that your relationship with the Lord has gotten you through? Have you had any?
Yes. Again, I say that when we first were married, you know, you have to get to know each other. Too many people are too quick to just call it off. And I believed that it was a commitment. And I believed that that's what I was committed to, was to stay in this. So, you know, there were times like that, but luckily I had some Christian friends that would counsel with me and do Bible studies and stuff. And then there was a period in my life where I got sick. I got Graves' disease, and then I had gallbladder surgery, and then I got real sick. I lost a lot of weight, and then after they did that, then I gained a lot of weight, like 60 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And so it put me in a depression that was horrible. And I kind of look back and remember being mean to my children which I don't remember being that mean to them. You spill your milk, that's an accident, clean it up, instead of screaming at them. And I couldn't sleep. It was a bad time, just bad time in there. And finally the doctor did put me on some medication. They took care of the Graves' disease. I had my gallbladder taken out. My mother died of an aneurysm.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a little bit traumatic there. And then my stepfather died later, a year later, of a heart attack. So, those kind of things wear on you. And then several years ago, my father shot himself.
Oh, my.
And I get a call, and these things aren't things that people go through,
You don't have any preparation, right? You don't know how to deal with it.
And these were all sudden deaths, so there wasn't anything to go up to, to go and do that with. And then even Chuck's father, his parents were my parents. They loved me as their daughter, and I loved them as I knew what a mom and dad was through his mom and dad. I knew what a family was through his family. And his dad died in his sleep.
Oh, wow.
And we went to the house, and I knew he was dead, but of course they had to do all this stuff. And I do have to say, I had a really blessing in my life when his mother was getting older, and she lived just a field away from us. But we went to her house all the time towards the night, and I said, she needs to move in with us, Chuck. She needs to move in with us. And she'd say, no, no, no. I said, okay, if you don't move in with us, I'm going to move to your house. Oh, you can't do that. So she moved in with us. And during the day, the boys took care of her. But then towards the end and all that stuff, I took off work, and I got to take care of my mother-in-law. And that was a blessing. No, it was very hard, but it was a blessing to me. So, there are times in my life that, I think you're not thinking that the Lord is there, but then you look back and you see how He has worked through those things and has kept you close to Him.
Right.
And so I know that is, being in the Word is one thing that is very, very important to me and my Christian friends. And, Chuck's always been there for me. I got real sick in 2009 and ended up in the hospital with a blood count of 3. They found a baseball-sized tumor in my stomach.
Oh, boy.
So they took half of my stomach, and I guess I was very, very ill. And I was in the hospital a long time, and I didn't realize how ill I was until, everything was over and done, basically. And so, God has a purpose for me somewhere, and so here I am, still moving on and still loving the Lord and, trying to grow. Before I became a Christian, during that period of time, I call that my winter season, I had fun. But I will tell you that there were times I woke up in my bed and didn't know how I got there. There were times when I would overdose and don't know how I got through it. But once I became a Christian and really got founded in the Word and knew what Jesus had for me in my life, do you know that I've had more fun and had so much joy? And when I wake up in the morning, I can remember it, and I know where I went, and I know, how I got. And, walking with Him and having that part of my life is way more enjoyable, and I'm way more blessed because I can remember it, and I don't get in trouble for doing it. I don't have to look over my shoulder every time I turn around. Is there somebody there? And a lot of people say, oh, it's just, being a Christian is, boring and all that. And no, it's not. I will tell you, I've had a blast.
Tell us one thing you've had a blast at.
Oh, I loved going to women's retreats and staying up all night and short-sheeting the other women's beds. And we'd stay up all night and talk all night and, and maybe go to sleep at 5 and then get up at 7 and go to the retreat and sing. And that's fun. And another good thing that I can remember is we took our children to a Christian camp for a week every summer.
Oh, great.
And do you know that when my son he's married to her now, when they were just going together, he took her to Mount Hermon and showed her where he spent his summers. And then Regina brought her boyfriend. We went one time, and she said, "Can I bring my boyfriend," which is her husband now. They wanted to show where they had fun and grew up as Christians and what they saw. So it's a lot of fun. And then just being with Christians and, you know.
Being with people of like mind, who think like you, who know what God's all about, who have a relationship.
Right. And I volunteer at an agency that we help people who aren't Christians. And so I see a lot of people that way, you know, and we're helping them do that. And I enjoy working there and helping the non-Christian in our community. So
That's great. That's great. Now, you mentioned one verse that is your life verse. Are there any other verses or a verse that really stands out to you? And
I can't quote it as good, but I think it's Proverbs, seek first, see if there be any wicked way in me, search me, O Lord, see if there be any wicked way in me, and change me in that. And I have that on my mirror. I don't know why, you know, the older you get, the less memory you have. So the one I quoted in the beginning is really the one that I hold firm to.
Right, right.
You know.
So you have fun, but it sounds like it's more meaningful.
Way.
It's more joyful.
Yes.
And it's more of an investment into not only your future, but the generations that are coming up, into them and into their future.
Yes, and I pray for my family and my grandchildren and my children and everybody constantly. I pray for them because, you know, I want them to know. And I know my children know the Lord, at least 2 of them do. Jane was raised in Thailand, so she's not quite, but we've talked to her and witnessed to her, and so I think that, you know, that
it's only a matter of time.
She knows.
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
Mary Kay, this has been so great. Thank you so much for sharing your testimony with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
We will pray for you and your family and just are so happy to have spent this time with you. And thank you to our viewers. We appreciate you spending this time with us. We hope that you have learned and gleaned as much as we have from Mary Kay's testimony. Until next time, thank you for joining Why We Are Christians. Bye-bye.